Hello, I would like to talk about Jeremy's work, uh, and especially his book. So, Jeremy Griffith, the Australian biologist, that has written several books about the human condition, and especially Freedom, the End of the Human Condition. So, basically, he puts forward a theory, and he claims to answer to basically all the great questions, starting with, well, explaining the human condition, the human guilt, and why humans are so upset, as he puts it. And also questions such as what's the purpose of existence? Or even how do we acquire our moral instincts? What are our origins and why are we capable of love and of understanding the difference between good and bad, of having a notion of good and bad, and how the conscious brain, how we humans developed a conscious brain, where all the animals uh, couldn't. So there's a lot of information in his books, and so I'm gonna try to review a little bit what I've understood so far. And it's just when you start reading this book, you just start understanding more and more, and you just try to see if everything makes sense, if everything is right or if it's wrong, and yeah, things just start to add up, and you realize, holy shit! And you're not scared of these big questions anymore. You Everything starts to make sense. You see that there's nothing to be afraid of. So to start at the beginning, so what we know about our universe is that we live in a universe made of matter. And so to begin, one thing that's really important to understand about Jeremy's work is that he has a holistic approach. He recognizes a purpose to existence, whereas most of science nowadays is mechanistic or reductionist, which means that obviously we see change in this universe, but science nowadays says that this change is random, that it doesn't follow any pattern at all. It's totally random. And if you look at nature, if you look at the universe, it's pretty obvious that there's a path, a pattern. Let's start at the beginning. Let's take the Big Bang. So there's a huge release of energy, and as we know, with Einstein, E equal mc2, energy and matter are related. So there's this huge explosion, this Big Bang, and we have matter, so cosmos, very thin particle, like sort of cloud of dust in a very chaotic pattern, just moving in every direction. And from this, something starts to happen. We start to see that matter starts to organize itself. And this in physics, this law of physics is called negative entropy. And we also know this pattern as integrative meaning. But basically, what integrative meaning, this law of physics states, is that when when you have energy, matter, and energy, so like in the case of the universe, the Big Bang releases energy and matter, and on Earth we have a solar system. We have the sun continuously giving energy to our system, to planet Earth. And so what is matter doing when it has energy? It integrates, it organizes itself. And what we see at the beginning, with the Big Bang, the particles of cosmos, they start coming together, and they organize and they create atoms. So the first step is atoms, and you see so matter organizing itself, and then it doesn't stop there. You have different atoms. So in overall, there's 94 periodic elements, and there's 94 different atoms, different size, different. but basically those atoms they look for more complexity. So we can see that the universe is looking for complexity and stability. So it becomes more complex in space and more stable through time. So we have molecules that form different atoms come together and find stable and complex structures, organization, if you want. So you see, you have one oxygen and two hydrogen um, atoms that come together and make HO2, make water, for example. And on a global scale, what we see in the universe is that so very small elements, matter, like gas, is coming together in places to create stars. And stars, they're made of very thin, very light gas that comes together, and there's fusion and a huge release of energy, and it creates more complex gas. Um, and around these big hubs of energy, you have matter that organizes itself as well in planets, for instance, that can be made of gas or solid with solid elements, and so on this. So for instance, on Earth we have the 94 periodic elements, 94 types of yeah, atoms, and they create molecules, so complex molecules. But what we see everywhere is that the universe tries to create these molecules, but it reaches a maximum. It cannot Molecules cannot become always more complex. At some point, it becomes too unstable, so it reaches a maximum. Um, and so basically, pretty much everywhere in the universe, there's this same type of molecules. But on planet Earth, so we live in a proper environment, the proper temperatures and the right elements on it, and a much more complex molecule has appeared. It's DNA, and you have to understand that. So DNA is such a complex molecule; it tends to disintegrate with the energy of the sun. So, but this molecule, it can replicate. It can sort of reproduce itself, and so it just keeps on living. It just regenerates, and that's what we call life. So basically, DNA, it's two two lines of carbon together, twisted together, and these lines of carbon, if you there are some flowers, they have a DNA that's over 300 meters long. If you take all the DNA molecule from the human body and you put them uh, side by side, it does the distance of the solar systems uh, twice. So, but it's just a very very long and complex molecule, and it's able to replicate itself. So it starts replicating itself, and it creates a monocellular organism with a kern, and what we see as viruses, for example. And so they start to evolve, and to replicate. But it doesn't stop there. Those unicellular organisms, then they started coming together and creating colonies, for example. And you will have, and eventually, they create great colonies of many individual cells, and eventually each cell takes a certain roles. Like some cell in the front become they specialize in the vision, for example, being aware of the environment. Some cells, they are specialized into reproduction, and it becomes, and slowly it turns into multicellular organism. And so we see emerge on Earth multicellular organism, which is we can become way more complex, and it's all the life we see on Earth: plants, animals, everything. Um, and however, it found also a new way to increase diversity, because the thing is, the life depends on the resource, and the resource can change, and the environment can change, temperature, everything. So it needs a lot of diversity. So it found a way. It found sexual reproduction. So it's two individuals with different genetic code, two different DNA molecule, if you want. They come together and they create a new individual. So sexual reproduction. Um, and that also means that so we live in an environment with limited resource. So inevitably, all the every individual, every multicellular organism is going to have to fight against others for the resource in order to survive. Basically, you're just going to have different types of individuals, but those who survive um, are the ones that tends to focus on survival, basically on their own. So basically, if an individual or an animal has a selfish makeup, it has more chance to survive than an individual that have selfless makeup. If an individual would care about others, because as we said, the purpose of the universe is selflessness. Like what happened on every step of the way when atoms come together and create a molecule, the individual atom is accepting to be part of something bigger and to take a role in this bigger thing. So it's willing to sacrifice its individuality and for the benefit of the group. And it's the same for the cells. And if a cell in a body is deficient and is being a problem for the body, it's gonna sacrifice itself. It's gonna die. When you have a sunburn, your skin cells they're gonna die so that the body is gonna survive because they have been too damaged by the sun. So so selflessness is fundamental. It's like the glue, and it is the purpose of the universe. Selflessness, in human behavior we can call it love. So it's basically accepting being part of something bigger and going until being able having the will to sacrifice even yourself for the welfare of the group. This is the purpose of the universe. It's the glue that sticks everything in the universe. That's how integration is possible. That's how the complexification and is possible, yeah, in our universe. But these animals they cannot be selfless because the ones that are selfless they tend to just help others and they're just not gonna reproduce. So the ones that are left are the ones that care for their own reproduction. Um, so yeah, we kind of reach a ceiling again, and so the universe cannot get more complexification because the animals so far the more complex form of creation, if you want. But each individual cannot be selfless. They have to compete with the other individuals to survive. It's natural selection. What Darwin explained as natural selection. However, there's one animal that's been able to break free from this condition, from this competition amongst individuals, and that's our ape ancestor. So I think they are the Australopithecine. So, or from 10 million years ago until 2 million years ago, our ancestors, they have lived in cooperation and with love. They have lived in a matriarchal society where the role of the mother especially, was the most important. And so we found, like anthropologists have made this obvious now, but we could not really explain why became a matriarchy. So basically, what Jeremy explained, also other thinkers, John Fiske has also put it forward about the same times as Darwin presented his explanation of natural selection, just a few years after. But basically, we humans have the capacity to be selfless and to have empathy and to put ourselves in the shoes of someone else and to know what it feels to be someone else and to realize that an action towards someone can either be good or bad. And every human being that is born knows if his action is going to be good towards someone else or bad, if it's going to integrate, if it's going to help the group, or it's going to put the group in danger, basically. If it's integrative or disintegrative. So yeah, humans have this capacity. So how do they do it? That's one of the great questions of biology. So basically, when you there's one very strange, you would say, what's something about humans that is a big handicap in the animal kingdom, and that's we have a very long infancy, and a human child depends on his parent for survival for a very long time. If you look even nowadays in the tribe, Aboriginal tribe, the mother is constantly holding a child up to 4 years old. So he's always in contact with the mother. The mother is always taking care of it, always in contact, touching, giving it food, providing it shelter, reassuring it. And that's not possible for any other animal, because if you're a zebra, for instance, you have to be able to run away from danger. Like, if in 2 days you cannot run away, you're gonna get eaten by a lion and it's over. So animals cannot afford to have long infancy, but humans do. And so if you think about it, what happens when you're in infancy? What happens when you depend on your mother, on someone else for survival? Well, you have someone that's constantly taking care of you. You have your mother that is always there to give you shelter, to give you food, to care for you. And it's just the perfect life. It's just paradise. It's just heaven. On the perspective of a child. So you're born into this world and you discover selflessness. You discover someone taking care for you. So you have to understand that on the point of the mother, on the mother's perspective, she's doing this because she has to. She has to make sure that her child is going to survive. If it doesn't survive, she's not going to reproduce her genes. So she takes care of the child. So it's selfish on her base. But for the child, it's selfless. He sees it as selflessness. He just sees someone being cooperative and caring for it. And so if for a very long time it's been treated with cooperation and love, it's gonna start acting cooperative and lovingly towards others. So that's how loving and cooperative behavior emerge in the first place in humans. And then we have the fact that the females, they started selecting males that were more cooperative. They realized, oh, I have some males they've been taking care of, and they are being cooperative. They are helping us. They are helping the group instead of being competitive. And they decided, oh, I'm gonna mate with the cooperative males. And that's how, after a few generations, only the cooperative males were selected. So only cooperation um, remained and became our instincts. That's how natural selection works. That's what Darwin explained in The Origin of Species. So yeah, we developed cooperative instinct, loving instincts, and this moral of knowing what I'm doing is right or wrong, if I'm helping the group or if I'm being destructive towards the group. And so Australopithecine, our ancestor, has lived for 8 million years. Now we can see anthropological records. Like for 8 million years, they have lived in this state of cooperation. I mean, we just developed those cooperative instincts about 10 million years ago. And it has triggered something else, something different also. And that's obviously our conscious brain. We're also the only animals that can think. We're the only animals that can love and have empathy, and we're also the only animal that can think. The great question is why? Why are we the only animals that can do it? Why others can't? And now, with Jeremy, you can understand. He's basically explained that it's because we have these loving instincts that are aligned with the purpose of the universe. So the purpose of the universe is integration, is selflessness, is parts coming together to create something more complex and stable. And so finally, individuals have been able to come together and to be part of something bigger, of the tribe, to be part of the human race, the human species in general, to be selfless and to care for the group more than to care for themselves. So yeah, and so we started looking at the world and realizing, oh, that's how the world works, the world around us. when I look at the leaves in the fall, they start falling from the tree because the leaves knows that if the tree basically has to take care of the leaves in the winter, it's not going to survive. It doesn't have enough resource, enough energy to take care of the leaves, so the leaves have to die. And that's how life and the universe around us works. And we started making sense of everything around us. And that's how we developed the conscious brain. And now there's something very important, is that the conscious brain, it doesn't work the same way as all our instincts, basically. So every animal has instincts, and the instincts, it's just a genetic makeup that's written in DNA, and it just gives you a pattern, a direction. This is what you're gonna do. You are a predator. You're gonna hunt. You're gonna eat grass. You're gonna be a monkey and live in the trees. Whatever. You have a pattern, a set of behavior, and you stick to it all your life. You don't. So there's no room for thinking if you want. You just do the same thing. And if you don't do what I tell you, you come back on track and you obey. If you don't obey, I'm gonna make you feel bad because you're doing something wrong and you're gonna die. If you obey me, it's good. I'm gonna make you feel good because that's how you're gonna survive. That's how instincts work. And we developed a conscious brain, and the conscious brain, it cannot be focused doing the same thing all the time. The conscious brain needs understanding, so it needs to liberate itself from the instincts. The conscious brain, if he hears a noise in the bush, the first thing the instincts are going to be tell him to run, and then the conscious brain is going to be like, wait, I want to understand what it is. I want to understand what's going on. And so there's this conflict, this fight between the two. And we humans had to be brave enough to go over the fear and to make sense of things and to disobey and not to listen to the instincts and to figure out everything. So we came down from the trees where we were, and we just started exploring the world and making sense of everything around us. And look at us today. I mean, it's just so amazing. We can understand the elementary laws of physics and of biology and of everything around us. We can just make sense of everything. We've pushed it all the way. It's unfucking believable. And we're so habituated to it. We're so inside this process of understanding. We don't even realize how brave we are, but it's incredible. So we become conscious. And so there's a conflict between the new brain that tries to understand things and the old instinct that tell him, no, don't do this, don't do this, stay, do what I told you, stay on course. And the conscious brain is curious, it needs to understand. And until it doesn't understand everything, the fear is going to remain. And basically, when you understand things, you're not afraid anymore. Once you understand that you hear the thunder, once you understand it's just a meteorological event and it's not some huge monster or whatever, you're not going to be afraid of it anymore. So we need to understand everything. And basically, that's what we've been doing for 2 million years. That's what the species Homo sapiens, or Homo in general, and then Homo sapiens sapiens, has been committed to doing. It's to be stronger than the instincts, to defy the instincts and make sense of things, and master and gain understanding of the world around us. And for this we had to pay an immense price. We had to pay the price that our inner instincts that were here long before the conscious brain, that's been dictating, that's been everything for us until now. That thing, we have to separate ourselves from it because it's constantly giving us criticism. It's constantly telling us, no, it's bad, don't do it, just do what I tell you. So basically we are cutting off completely from our instincts. We're not in touch with them anymore like we used to be, or like a newborn child living in a good environment would be, because it's still very connected to the instincts. And more we become conscious, more we have to separate ourselves from our instincts. That's alienation, as Jeremy refers to it. There's this, and there's also the thing that when you're being criticized by your instincts, you become angry and you want to take revenge on your instincts, and you if you see something that's innocent and like the instinct that doesn't obey, you just want to take revenge on it. So we became angry. That's why we are angry, and that's why we destroy the planet. It's because we cannot take it anymore. This immense criticism. We feel so guilty, and subconsciously we became angry against nature and against everything. And there's something else is also that's inevitably. So we're being told that we are bad. The instinct are telling, no, you're bad. Just obey. Come back. And we have to prove that we're good. We're like, no, I'm not bad. I'm good. So we are constantly trying to prove a reason why we're good. We're like, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna kill a bunch of animals, or I'm gonna show that I'm better than others at doing something. I'm gonna be in competition with others and prove that I'm better than them. So I'm somehow gonna feel good. And that's why we are so selfishly preoccupied to proving ourselves all the time. That's why we are so focused on power and fame and fortune or glory. Like basically, we're all competing among each other to try to feel better than others, to feel good about ourselves. We cannot feel really good, so we try to feel better. We are competing, looking what others are doing all the time. And that's the horror of the human condition. It's this psychotic state of selfishness when actually our instincts used to be selfless and open to others and have empathy for others. Now we all focus each one on ourselves. That's the trauma of the human condition. So yeah, so basically he's made sense of this great question that Plato, who's been described until now as the greatest philosopher of all time, he's put the words to it and he said, this is what we have to answer. Why are we living in a cave? Why are we afraid of the light? Why are we afraid of the truth, of love, of integration? And Jeremy Griffith has given us an answer to it. He's put his book Freedom and his answer Plato's question, if you want. So he's the greatest philosopher of all time, uh, I would say. So, so one thing that's really important now. So what are we gonna do now? We understand why we're fucked up. So, but what's next? Basically, if a child, if you answer all his questions when he develops, when a child grows up, he's always asking why, but why this, why this. He's trying to understand the world all the time. But if he does get the answer, because until now we couldn't give all the answer, we didn't know. We couldn't understand ourselves. We couldn't understand the universe. We were running away from the truth that integration and complexification is the purpose of existence. And now we can give them all the answers. And being innocent and still being living in harmony with their instincts, it's just gonna make sense for them instantly. And if they do, they're not gonna feel the criticism by the instincts anymore. And if they do feel criticized, if the instincts are starting to say, "Oh, you're disobeying me. I tell you to be cooperative or to do whatever, to run away, and you still do it." The conscious brain can just tell him, "Listen, I work differently than you. I have to understand things, and you just obey. So just let me understand everything. And once I understand, I have my rest. But I love understanding. And I'm not bad, and you're not bad either. We just work on different ways. So just stop criticizing me." And then the instincts, they stop criticizing. And it's just fucking harmony and peace inside our heads, inside ourselves. Because as we all go through teenagehood and we start thinking more, we just become so depressed. Thinking makes us depressive because the instincts are criticizing. But if the instincts are not criticizing anymore, if they understand what's going on, why we behave differently, then there's no criticism and we can keep learning and understanding. And it's just a new era where conscience can live with the soul, with love, with harmony inside of us. And it's gonna be a new era for us humans. The children of the future, they're gonna be able to understand and to love at the same time. Whereas before we just had love in the beginning, and the more we understood, we had to get away from love, and we were becoming so psychotic because we had this fight within us. So basically, the world is gonna change like it's incredible, and we've gone so far, and now the human race is so tired, but we've finally deserved it. We've finally gone all the way. It's bloody amazing. So yes, all I can tell you is that we need to read this book, Freedom: The End of the Human Condition, by Jeremy Griffith. And once we start understanding ourselves, if you read this book, you're gonna start understanding the world, the human species, the human journey in general, and also your own life. Understand all your infancy, and all your memories are gonna come back from infancy. And you're gonna start making sense. Oh, that's what happened. That's why I was feeling bad. That's what, and you just realize, oh, you were never bad, and we can be so proud of ourselves. It's bloody amazing. So yeah, I urge you to read this book. And once we've read it, and once we all understand this, it's gonna be the greatest party on earth. It's gonna be the return of paradise. Honestly, like, doesn't matter. It's not about religion. There's nothing about religion here. It's just science. It's just logic. You follow the logic, and it all makes sense. We're afraid when you read this book at first. You're like, oh no, I don't want to read this. I don't want to get into this. I've done it before. It made me feel terrible. It made me feel depressed, and I wanted to kill myself, and I was feeling horrible. I don't want to go back to this. But if you follow the logic with Jeremy and you read this book, you just realize, fuck, everything makes sense. And humans are not bad. Humans are the greatest hero of the history of life on Earth. It's incredible. So yes, I hope you're gonna have a blast reading this book, and I wait for you. And shortly, you're gonna be able to talk and have amazing debates about all these questions, all this biology, psychology, and philosophy. So yeah, looking forward, and see you soon. Bye bye.